Everybody, it is June 20th. Sorry about that. It is June 20th, 2025, and I'm here with your after hours recap. So it kind of feels like we have gotten to that point in the rally where it is just super chop. If you own leadership from much lower, your Palantirs, maybe your Hoods, maybe a VST, maybe a GEV, recently Wednesday, some coin. If you own Circle, if you own CoreWeave, great. But it is an incredibly picky, or should I say, a stock picker's stock market. Like, you have to have your picks and the names that you want to own incredibly dialed in. And the reality is that just when you think, SoFi looks pretty good for some continuation, you get effectively an all down day and nothing serious, but really dependent on where you bought things. Is dependent on how you're going to be able to hold them. Some names that are a bit extended act like Shaq on the day, where they get really nice follow through. And then on the flip side of that, a name acts like Eat, where it just does absolutely nothing from your buy point. So very annoying. We're kind of at that stage. And again, you could look at a Palantir and just say to yourself, like, what has this thing really done since middle of May, right? It's like effectively since the highs of May, you're up a whopping 3% on Palantir. Not to say that it's doing anything wrong, but to say that if you haven't been in these things from much earlier, a lower pivot, getting involved in them has been very, very difficult. And that is just the reality with a lot of names in the market right now. Whether you're talking about an extended Zscaler, where do you buy it? Still very extended. Whether you're dealing with a CrowdStrike, just extremely choppy but trending. Like I just showed Palantir, incredibly choppy. Everybody thought ALAB looked pretty good going into today, and I've even been saying in the room, don't buy the first 5 or 10 minutes, right? Let the market settle and then see what happens. And what happened on something like ALAB is you started to just fail right from the word go, right? And this isn't pretty, right? You're kind of trying to break out over 529's high. You think it's a go, you're over 100, and then all of a sudden big failure. And then from the rest of the day, just kind of stays heavy. That even I've gotten accustomed to saying to myself, hey, I'm going to let things pull into these ascending moving averages, and then I'm going to try to go ahead and buy them as they're, reclaiming and they're bouncing and giving it a tight little stop off of lows. Well, I tried ALAB today and then just effectively started to close weak, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to hold on to that. So, no cushion into a weekend. We don't really know what's going to happen. And then stocks aren't really moving. If you don't have a cushion on it from much earlier, again, it's just a surprise little wake up today from Apple, but does it look good? No, it's below the 200. Heaviness all day in a name like Google, rebroke the 200 simple moving average on a pickup in volume. That's not pretty. Meta today, kind of nasty down day, pickup in volume towards the 20. Still nothing broken, but again, you could just see the action today. Amazon, same deal. Again, nothing broken, but a pickup in volume. And then the market's been tallying up these distribution days, right? If you think about the ES, and I thought to myself 6,000 was the short-term high almost a month ago, we are effectively just right on that short-term high. We're right around that 6,000, just kind of hovering around, and nothing really great has happened. And so unless you're in a Circle and a CoreWeave from much earlier, or you're playing some of the momentum and there's big volatility up and down, in fact, I don't actually think there's not that many good looking stocks unless you start to look in the energy space. And the more I look, the more I think that this is actually potentially a real move for energy and potential rotation. Like when you look at an EQT, this is gorgeous, right? Nice little flat base breakout continuation. You look at something like RRC, gorgeous, right? RRC and AR might as well be the exact same charts. Beautiful. Nice continuation. You look at something like CRK, beautiful. Awesome continuation from a base to a little high tight flag to continuation. Now, is this commodity name potentially a little extended in the tooth? Maybe. Or it could just be the leader, while a name like XOM begins to shape up, right? While a name like WMB looks fantastic, closed really, really nicely today on what? A pickup in volume, a nice little bull flag into the ascending and flattening 50, right? Above the ascending 200 simple moving average, a big base. So I don't know. The more I look into the energy space, the more I think to myself, you know what? Maybe these names got a little bit more to go. Maybe this is the potential rotation into energy names a la 2022. We have no clue. But again, buying tech names right now, real pain in the ass. Really buying anything that's extended, a little bit of a pain in the ass. And just when you think, the market has chopped around enough, it continues to chop around some more. So, not really anything notable out there, right? Recently, past few days, an Oscar, ASTS has just, really nice continuation. Rocket Lab I thought was really nice today. I made kind of you saw what happened to Elon's rocket blowing up. And then, I was like bullish ASTS and Rocket Lab. And then Rocket Lab today, little pickup in volume, closed right at the highs. HIM's nice action today. But otherwise, guys, if you're not like picking the absolute perfect names on the right day, it's just chop. It's just a complete and utter hellhole right now to try and get new names. Tesla rejecting off the 20 simple moving average. Now, still not doing anything wrong. Really nice tennis ball action, but effectively just rejecting its declining 20 moving day average. And I said, 335.50, not a penny before I won't get involved in this thing. So really needed to get above that level. Otherwise, I'll just be leaving this thing alone. And again, it's just been choppy. I've been trying to get involved. And, ARK kind of continues. ARK still looks really dang good, up against those February highs. So it effectively recovered the entire downtrend. And I just don't know if, maybe we need a bigger check back, maybe some more consolidation, something. Because the reality is this action just effing sucks, right? It's like, I don't know exactly how I plan on getting situated. I tried to buy a little dip in A-Lab today, saying to myself, you know what, semis are pretty strong. This thing, kind of got everybody excited, shook them all out, and maybe we go from here. But no real power once you kind of got smoked all day long, and then you really couldn't, start to V-shape recover, which is what a lot of these names have been doing. Fortunately, I did get rid of TMDX on Wednesday. Continuation lower today. Again, not really continuation, but just, no real recovery. TEM continues to be choppy. Not really doing anything wrong here, but again, not really doing anything right either. It just continues to kind of be the environment, and my mind just says, just slow down, relax, size things way down. If you can't get traction, I've said it before, on a 5% position, there should be no reason. If you're getting stopped out at 10% and then a 10% and a 10%, you're just giving back a bunch of the nice progress that you might have made in late April and all of May. And then, here you are late June, almost July, going into the summer, and it kind of feels like there's a lull. I don't want to say that the NASDAQ needs a big pullback. And the reason is, if you look at COT data, it's not very crowded. So it doesn't really feel like the market needs some big pullback, right? It feels like there's buying power on the sidelines, just waiting to come into the market. But the reality is it's just not coming into the market. It's not a very crowded market at the moment. So I don't want to think that the NASDAQ has to go lower in any kind of meaningful way. It's just that, when you look at whether it's your Zscalers or your Microsofts or an NVIDIA or, it's just some things have just gotten way too stretched. Really nice continued action in a VST. That's one of these, just every single day there seems to be a buyer in this thing. Feels like it's, maybe trying to go to a high. GEV still needs some more sideways in my opinion. And I still think that this is a pretty great sector. It still feels like the energy sector is a pretty good sector and starting to come to life. So maybe there's broadening in that respect. Banks still look pretty good, whether it be a JP Morgan, even though it did nothing today, or a Bank of New York Mellon, BK, or a Schwab. These things still look okay. But then on the flip side, you could look at a KLAC, And you could see how this thing acted when it hit a new all-time high. Just a big, big, big rejection from there. Not too massive, but again, a rejection. And then the speculative stuff, the Oklos of the world, coming down quite a bit in 4 days from that offering and still looking, not a huge pickup in volume on the way down. So that's not a big negative. And again, it's just starting to feel like maybe a name like Circle, 1 or 2 more days, kind of a blow off move into 280s, maybe 290s, 300, something crazy like that would be playable on the short side. And then how does that affect something like a CoreWeave and these recent IPO names? And then how does that affect a coin? And then even again, what we've seen is with Bitcoin, again, not acting the best. It just kind of continues to make lower lows, and you can just see every time this thing goes lower, it's a pickup in volume. Every time it goes higher, volume kind of falls off. So that's not actually super nice, but we are hanging out right at the 50. And then one of the names that used to kind of lead the move on the way up used to be MSTR, and now we are effectively hugging the 50 simple moving average. Does not look all that great in my opinion either. We don't know what Bitcoin's going to do over the weekend. If Bitcoin doesn't, if Bitcoin floats lower a few more percentage points, I could easily see, MSTR quite a bit lower, 30, 40, 50 points lower from here. So who really knows? Reality is that it's just been such a choppy hellhole in the market. Getting positioned in anything brand new has just been a super, super pain in the ass. Some of the names that are wildly extended, and I wouldn't even call it like wildly extended, but something like a CLS, it just now needs to build out the right-hand side. Stocks got so far away from their 50 simple moving average that it's hard for them to really go higher. So I'm going to continue to tread really small size. I only have PanW and ARK as my 2 remaining longs. I've been trying to get repositioned in longs, but literally with no success. So that's kind of a pain in the ass. And then Rigetti is my short. And again, that's kind of working. IONQ for a moment today looked like it was trying to go higher, but kind of rejected and finished up 1.5%, nothing too crazy. But again, it's just like what really looks good out there. Like I said, HIMS is acting a little bit better. But is it a thrilling chart? I don't know. Weekly looks fine. Does definitely look like it's a cup and a handle. Could potentially go higher. But again, no real opinions. It's like a super stock pickers market. It's easier to operate with all of your portfolio when you have a lot of follow through. And right now it's just been super choppy. Just look at the daily of the Nasdaq. Look at the daily of the S&P 500, and it's just been. This is just. If this isn't shitty action, I don't know what is. Again, you're in an uptrend, so if you own some of the leaders from lower, congratulations. Those have been fairly stress-free. But again, some names have gotten quite extended from the 50, and we just don't really know what over the weekend brings. So trying to sit positioned in a new long with no cushion is just kind of a no-go. Looks like energy may be trying to get going. And I've got no real other opinions than that, other than just play small size until you gain some traction. Continue to do your homework at night. Continue to scan. Look for clean pivots. Look for things that are tight. And then expect nice action if you take out prior day high. If you're not getting nice action when you take out prior day high, kind of use that, engage that feedback to know, all right, maybe I kind of need to take my foot off the pedal. And I definitely don't want to give back gains that I made. You can make 20, 30%, 40% on your portfolio in 2 months. But then you can just slowly kind of chip away at it every single day. So please don't do that. Please size things down. And like I said, when everybody's making money and the market's a whole lot easier and you got a bunch of clean setups and things are following through from nice pivots, I want things to break out like ARK, where it gives you a really nice pivot and then gets nice and tight, has a little shakeout bar, and then explosive volume through the pivot, and then does not look back, right? This is exactly what I want all my stocks to act like, on day one in particular. But when you deal with chop, right, and then you try to buy a push, and then it fails to low of day, and then you're looking to buy a dip or rebuy it through the pit, it's just too much of a pain in the ass. And so right now, mentally sizing things down a little bit smaller until we start to get a little bit better traction in the market, and then size it up behind some traction that we already have. So until then, playing small. And anyway, hopefully this video finds you guys well. Please enjoy your weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday morning for pre-market prep. Cheers.